hidden plot. Welcome back to Revenge with Romeo. On this channel, we tell powerful life stories about betrayal, pain, and revenge. Stories that remind us that sometimes the people we trust the most are the ones who hurt us the deepest. This story is called The Hidden Plot. Meet Lizy. Lizy was known in her office as one of the most hardworking employees. She was intelligent, calm, and respectful. She always finished her work on time, and her managers trusted her judgment. Because of her dedication, Lizy was slowly becoming one of the most important people in the company. Many people respected her work, but not everyone was happy about her success. Lizy worked closely with her colleagues she trusted very much. The first was Karen. Karen was a senior project manager. She was confident and very ambitious. On the outside, she always smiled at Lizy and praised her work. But deep inside, Karen felt threatened by Lizy's growing reputation. The second colleague was James. James was friendly and charming. He always joked with everyone in the office and acted like he supported Lizy, but James had a habit of taking credit for work that was not his. The third was Monica. Monica was quiet and observant. She did not talk much, but she always seemed to know everything happening in the office. People often underestimated her because she stayed silent most of the time. The fourth was David. David was the one Lizy trusted the most. They had worked together for years. They often helped each other with projects and shared ideas about work and life. Lizy believed David was her closest friend in the office. For a long time, everything seemed normal. The team worked together on projects, attended meetings, and shared lunch breaks. Lizy felt lucky to have colleagues she trusted. But slowly, things started changing. At first, the problems were small. One day, an important file Lizy prepared for a meeting disappeared from the shared system. She searched everywhere but could not find it. The meeting went badly because she did not have the document ready. Her manager looked disappointed. Another chimney, an email Lizy had carefully written to an important client, was sent with several strange mistakes in it. The client complained. Lizy was shocked. She clearly remembered writing the email correctly, but somehow the message had been changed before it was sent. At first, Lizy blamed herself. Maybe she was tired. Maybe she made mistakes without noticing. But deep inside, a small feeling of unease began to grow. Something was not right. And she had no idea that the people she trusted the most were quietly beginning to destroy. Weeks passed, and the problems did not stop. In fact, they became worse. One morning, Lizy arrived at the office early to prepare a report for a major presentation. She had worked on the project for several weeks, and she was confident the presentation would impress the management. But when the meeting started, something unexpected happened. Karen stood up and began presenting the project. Lizy sat there in shock. The ideas Karen was explaining were the same ideas Lizy had written in her report. Word for word. Karen spoke confidently while the managers nodded with approval. At the end of the meeting, the boss congratulated Karen. Excellent work. Karen, this project could bring great results for the company. Lizy felt her heart sink. She knew those ideas were hers. But she stayed silent. After the meeting, Lizy walked back to her desk, feeling confused and hurt. James walked past her and smiled. Great meeting, right? He said casually. Lizy forced a small smile, but something inside her felt wrong. Later that week, another problem happened. An important deadline was missed for a client project. The responsibility was placed on Lizy because the task was assigned under her name. But Lizy clearly remembered sending the completed work 2 days earlier. When she checked the system, the file was gone, completely deleted. Her manager called her into the office. "Lizy, this is not like you," he said seriously. "Your performance has been dropping." Those words hurt deeply. Lizy left the office feeling embarrassed and confused. As she walked through the hallway, she noticed something strange. Karen, James, Monica, and David were standing together talking quietly. When they saw Lizy approaching, they suddenly stopped talking. David smiled and greeted her as usual. But for the first time, Lizy felt something she had never felt before. Doubt. She sat at her desk, staring at her computer screen. Her mind began replaying all the strange events of the past few weeks. The missing files, the altered emails, the stolen project idea, the deleted report. Slowly, a terrible thought began forming in her mind. What if these things were not accidents? What if someone was doing this on purpose? And even worse, what if the people responsible were the ones she trusted the most? Lizy felt a chill run down her spine. For the first time, she began to realize something terrifying. A hidden plot might be forming around her. And if she did not discover the truth soon, she could lose everything she had worked so hard to build. After that day, Lizy could not think the same way again. The thought stayed in her mind all night. She sat on her bed staring at the wall, replaying every moment that had happened in the office during the past few weeks. The missing files, the altered emails, the stolen presentation, the deleted report. Before, she believed these things were accidents. But now the pattern was becoming clear. Someone was doing this on purpose. The next morning, Lizy arrived at the office earlier than usual. She wanted to watch carefully. She wanted to observe everyone without drawing attention to herself. Karen arrived first. Karen greeted her with a warm smile. "Good morning, Lizy." But the smile felt different this time. It did not feel friendly anymore. It felt calculated. A few minutes later, James walked in, holding his coffee. He greeted Lizy casually and began chatting with Karen. Monica came quietly and sat at her desk without saying much, as usual. Then David arrived. "Hey, Lizy," he said warmly. "You look tired. Everything okay?" Lizy forced a small smile. "Yes, I'm fine." But inside her mind, something had changed. For the first time, she was not just looking at them as friends. She was watching them as suspects. That day, Lizy decided to do something different. She began keeping copies of every file she worked on. She saved her emails carefully and even started writing down important events in a small notebook. She did not tell anyone. Days passed. Then one evening, while checking the office system, Lizy noticed something strange. One of her files had been opened late at night. The record showed the exact time the file was accessed. But Lizy had already left the office at that time. Her heart began beating faster. She looked deeper into the system log, and then she saw the name of the person who opened the file. Jamis. Lizy leaned back slowly in her chair. A cold feeling spread through her body. James had always acted like her supporter. He always joked with her, encouraged her, and told her not to worry about the problems at work. But now she realized something painful. James was not helping her. He was watching her and possibly sabotaging her. But the discovery about James was only the beginning. The deeper she looked, the darker the truth became. Later that week, Lizy made another shocking discovery. She was working late in the office one evening. Most of the employees had already left. The building was quiet. As Lizy walked past the meeting room, she heard voices inside. She recognized them immediately. Karen, Monica, and Lizy. Lizy stopped walking. The door was slightly open. She did not plan to listen, but when she heard her name, her heart froze. "She's starting to notice," Karen said quietly. Monica replied calmly, "Relax. She still doesn't have proof." David spoke next. His voice was serious. "We just have to be careful. If she finds out what we did with the report, everything could collapse." Lizy felt like the ground disappeared beneath her feet. Her chest tightened. Her hands began to shake. They were talking about her. Talking about what they had done. The people she trusted most in the office were standing in that room, planning her downfall. She slowly stepped away from the door before they could see her. Her heart was racing. Lizy, the one person she trusted more than anyone else. He was part of it. The pain was deeper than she could explain. Lizy left the office that night, feeling completely broken. When she reached home, she sat alone in the darkness. Tears rolled down her face. "How could they do this to me?" she whispered. For the first time, Lizy felt real fear. These people had already damaged her reputation. They had already turned her workplace against her. If they continued, they could destroy her career completely. But after the tears stopped, something inside Lizy slowly changed. The fear did not disappear, but it transformed into something else. Determination. If they were plotting against her, then she would uncover every piece of their plan. She would watch them carefully. She would gather evidence. And when the time was right, she would turn their own plot against them. Because in this story, Lizy would not remain the victim. She would become something far more dangerous. Someone ready for revenge. After that night, Lizy was no longer the same person. The pain of betrayal was still inside her. But something stronger had taken its place. She was no longer confused. She was no longer blind. Now she was watching. Every day in the office, Lizy behaved as if nothing had changed. She greeted Karen politely. She smiled when James joked around. She nodded quietly when Monica spoke. And she still treated David like the friend he pretended to be. But inside, Lizy was alert. She began observing everything carefully. She noticed how Karen always asked questions about Lizy's projects before meetings. Karen would pretend she was just curious. But Lizy now understood she was gathering information. James still acted like the friendly colleague. But Lizy saw how often he walked past her desk when she was not there. Sometimes he stayed longer than necessary, staring at her computer screen. Monica remained quiet as always. But Lizy started noticing how Monica often carried information from one person to another She was like a silent messenger, spreading things behind the scenes. David continued acting like Liz's closest ally. He still asked if she was okay. He still offered to help her with tasks. But now, every time Lizy looked at him, she remembered the conversation she heard in that meeting room. The betrayal cut deeply. Still, Lizy stayed calm. Instead of confronting them, she started building something stronger, evidence. She began recording every change made to her files. She saved screenshots of her emails. She backed up every report she created. She even started arriving at the office earlier than everyone else, checking the system logs before the workday began. Then one morning, she discovered something shocking. An important proposal she had been preparing had been copied from her folder during the night. When she checked the system records, the access came from Karen's account. Lizy stared at the screen in silence. She knew Karen was the one stealing her work. But Lizy did not react. Instead, a small, quiet smile appeared on her face. Because now, the pieces of the puzzle were finally coming together, and her plan was beginning to take shape. That same week, Lizy decided to do something clever. She created a new project proposal. It looked important and detailed, but inside the document she placed several small, intentional mistakes. Not obvious mistakes, just enough to cause problems. If someone tried to present the document as their own work, then she saved the file in her office folder, making sure it looked like a confidential project. After that, she waited. 2 days later, the company held an important meeting with senior management. Lizy sat quietly at the conference table. Karen stood up confidently and opened her laptop. "I have an exciting new proposal for the company," Karen said proudly. As Karen began presenting the document, Lizy listened carefully. Word by word, Karen repeated the same proposal Lizy had created. Exactly the same one. But halfway through the presentation, something happened. One of the managers interrupted. "Karen," he said, frowning, "these numbers don't make sense. And this timeline is completely unrealistic." Another manager looked at the document. "There are several inconsistencies here," he added. "This proposal has serious errors." Karen's confidence quickly disappeared. She began struggling to explain the mistakes. Lizy sat quietly, watching. James looked uncomfortable. Monica avoided eye contact. David remained silent. The room became tense. Finally, the manager closed the document and looked directly at Karen. "Please review your work more carefully next time," he said firmly. The meeting ended awkwardly. As everyone began leaving the room, Lizy slowly gathered her papers. For the first time in weeks, she felt a small sense of control returning to her life. Her plan had worked. She had not exposed everything yet, but she had taken the first step. And her colleagues had no idea that Lizy was no longer the victim in their hidden plot. She was now the one setting the trap. After the meeting, the office atmosphere changed. Karen avoided looking at Lizy. James suddenly became very quiet. Monica stayed at her desk most of the time, pretending to be busy. And David no longer acted as confident as before. But Lizy remained calm. She knew the first step of her plan had worked. Karen had embarrassed herself in front of management. But that was only the beginning. Lizy was not interested in small victories. She wanted the truth to come out completely. Over the next few days, she continued gathering more evidence. Every email, every file transfer, every strange activity in the system logs, Lizy saved everything carefully. One evening, while checking the company records again, she found something important. A hidden folder. Inside that folder were multiple documents that had originally belonged to Lizy, reports she had written, strategies she had designed, even ideas she had shared privately with David months earlier. All of them had been copied and stored under different names. And one name appeared again and again in the records. Lizy. Lizy felt her chest tighten as she stared at the screen. Karen had stolen the files. James had helped move them. Monica had spread information around the office. Lizy. David had been the one directing everything. The man she trusted the most had been the real mastermind. For a moment, Lizy closed her eyes. The pain was heavy, but she did not cry. Instead, she took a deep breath and whispered softly to herself, "Now it ends." The next morning, Lizy requested a meeting with senior management. Not a small meeting, a full review meeting. Karen, James, Monica, and David were all asked to attend. None of them knew why. But Lizy, this time, the truth would finally be revealed. The conference room was quiet. Karen sat stiffly in her chair. James looked nervous. Monica kept looking down at the table. David tried to appear calm, but there was tension in his face. Then Lizy stood up. She connected her laptop to the screen. "I would like to present something important," she said calmly. The first document appeared on the screen. It was Lizy's original project proposal from months ago. Then she opened another file. The same document appeared again, but this time under Karen's name. Murmurs filled the room. Next, Lizy showed the system access records. The timestamps clearly showed Karen copying the files. Then another record appeared. James transferring those files to a shared folder. Monica sending internal messages discussing the information. Finally, Lizy opened the last document. The hidden folder. The one connected to David's account. The room became completely silent. Lizy turned slowly and looked directly at David. "You were the one behind all of it," she said quietly. David's face turned pale. No one spoke. The evidence was too clear to deny. The senior manager leaned forward slowly. "Is this true?" asked. David tried to speak, but no words came out. Karen looked shocked. James buried his face in his hands. Monica looked like she might cry. Everything was falling apart. Lizy stood there calmly. For months, they had tried to destroy her reputation, steal her work, and push her out of the company. But now the truth was finally visible. The manager turned to the group with a serious expression. "This behavior will be investigated immediately," he said firmly. Within weeks, the company completed its internal review. Karen was dismissed. James received disciplinary action. Monica was transferred to another department. And David, the man who started everything, lost his position completely. Meanwhile, Lizy received something she never expected: recognition. The company promoted her to lead the very department where she had once been betrayed. On her first day in her new office, Lizy stood by the window and looked out at the city. The pain of betrayal had once broken her heart, but it had also made her stronger. She had not allowed anger to destroy her. She had used patience, courage, and truth. And in the end, the victim had become the victor. Sometimes revenge is not about destruction. Sometimes revenge is simply about letting the truth rise into the light. And when it does, justice finally speaks. Please subscribe to our channel. Like and share comment. It takes nothing to be something.